Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media production. If you're new to the channel, what we do here is talk about tips and tricks and tuning and hacks and myth busting and curious things that are mentioned on the internet, like the thing that we're going to do today, which is if you want a stronger cross stick sound, you use part of a drum head in conjunction with your actual drum head. It's complicated, you'll see. The internet is a Wild West kind of place, and there's a lot of good / bad / good again things that occur on there. And one of my favorites is just things that people put in comments on random videos about stuff they've heard or that they've tried or that somebody told them would do a certain thing. And today is one of those. The description was a little hazy, so we're taking from it what we think was intended. Because it seems like it might actually be a thing, and yeah, we're going to find out. Thanks again to ProMark by Dodaro for being our presenting sponsor. I'm doing the Michael Carvins today because they're awesome, and I love them very much. And what we're going to do with those little sticks today is interesting. So the premise here is that you have a regular snare drum with regular triple flange hoops, and you want a fuller or louder or more aggressive cross stick sound, and I guess maybe also rimshot sound. And you don't have die-cast hoops to put on there, so this is a workaround. The person that posted this on the internet gave a description that was fairly clear, but I didn't quite understand like what they were getting at. We sort of went back and forth about it, and I think the thing we're going to do is what they intended, but regardless of that, this is a curious thing that you can try, and I just learned about it like today, so this is me also finding out what it does in real time for you. And it goes like this. You take your hoop off of your snare drum and you get an old batter head, or I guess a snare side head, I guess it doesn't really matter, but another 14-inch head, and you get a knife and cut the head off of the flesh hoop. This is a flesh hoop is what they call this, even though there's no flesh involved on these. And what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to lay it directly on top of the batter head on here, effectively raising the height of the hoop with this as sort of like a buffer that's going to just sit on top of it, and then we replace the hoop. Hopefully your screws are long enough to reach your lugs still after you do this, which is the first variable to be concerned about. And then we just put it back on and tune it up. And what this does is it raises the height of the hoop around the head by that much, whatever, 1/4 of an inch or 3/8, whatever it is. So the intended consequence of this is to get a stronger or louder or fuller cross stick sound, and I guess also maybe change your rimshot sound a little bit. I think it goes without saying that it's going to change the sound of the drum to some degree, and it's going to probably change the cross stick sound too. So we're going to go ahead and do it and then talk about what might be the actual effect going on here. All right, so it's the Superphonic. Largely, it sounds like a Superphonic. The cross stick sound is good. The rimshot sound is good. We did some variables on the rimshot a little bit to kind of move it around, go through some different styles, and yeah, it's functional. Let's go now to standard setup with the same head. Just take this thing out and see what that does. So where I'm sitting right now, the audio experience is not that different for the cross stick. The actual sound of the drum playing rim shots and ghost notes and stuff is a little bit different. It's not dramatic. I feel like this is warmer than with the hoop added. And with the hoop added, it's maybe a little more aggressive, depending on where I hit it. But overall, it's not a sea change in the actual sound of the drum. And the cross stick is different. It doesn't really feel a whole lot louder, but let's talk about the main thing that's changing here, and that is the angle that your stick is at when you connect with the cross stick. So when we're doing a cross stick, basically the motion that we're looking at is the tip of the stick is on the head, most of the time anyway. I mean, there's different ways to do it, but normally the tip of the stick is on the head and you're pivoting the stick into the edge of the drum to get the sound to come out. Now, the taller that the hoop is on your drum, the steeper the angle will be when you're actually making that contact. And what that can result in is a little bit of more distance. My fingertips are maybe less likely to strike or rest on the head in between. And also, if the shoulder of your stick normally is the thing touching the head, if you're laying it down in the sort of completed cross stick position, then the tip is not touching, the shoulder's actually touching, and that's going to affect the sound and, more importantly, the feel of doing the cross stick. And maybe if you're doing fast ones or if you're trying to do patterns, it's going to change the overall kind of sensation of doing those things. So with a higher hoop, the feeling of really connecting, because the tip is still down and there's a gap underneath that might not be there normally, it does actually make it feel really different. And for me, the feeling of it is more powerful. And it is a little bit louder. It's a little bit fuller. There's a difference. You'll hear in the fast AB later on. But ultimately, they're both cross stick sounds that are totally functional. And the actual sound of hitting the drum is not that different. So, I mean, it's a choice you can make. It's a thing you can do. But now let's talk about some concerns on the flip side of this. Thing number one, this is going to also make the attack of your rim shots steeper. And what happens when your rim shot angle is steeper, as we've talked about in tom videos and other things, is the drum has a harder time dealing with the energy from the impact because it's spread over a shorter area. And that means that there's actually some pretty serious divots in this head already, just from that demonstration with the taller hoop. Granted, I was using sticks with small round beads, which are going to promote that kind of damage more than maybe an oval bead or an acorn, but nevertheless, that's something to be concerned about. If you're really going to be wailing on it, you might end up going through the head a little bit faster, which could be problematic. Concern number two is that it was actually really difficult to get this drum in tune with itself with the added flesh hoop underneath the batter hoop. And part of it might have been my concern that I was doing something that was maybe a little like structurally not super great, or that it was going to pull off to the side in a funny way, but I definitely found it really tricky just to get the head in tune with itself. And I've tuned this drum up a lot. I tuned it up just now without that in there, and it was no problem. So it's definitely that this is there as well that makes it a little funny, because we're not getting that direct connection between the batter hoop and the flesh hoop of the actual head that we're playing. We're basically creating almost like a sonic barrier in between the hoop that we're striking and the hoop that's attached to the head, which is touching the drum. So there could be a degree of muffling going on there. There's a possibility of it promoting certain overtones. There's a possibility of this hoop being out of round or differently round than the one that the head is actually attached to. And all of those things can influence how the drum behaves, how it sounds, how it feels to hit it, and what the experience of tuning it up actually is in practice. And now here's a quick back-to-back so you can hear these just right next to each other and really get a good idea of the differential. Now, when you're striking a drum on the head itself, you're interacting with that skin that's touching the edge of the drum. When you're doing cross stick, you're striking the rim that's touching the flesh hoop that's touching the skin that's then touching the drum. There's a lot of little areas of energy transfer going on there. There's several layers of going from the stick all the way to the sound. And adding anything or subtracting anything is definitely going to make a difference. And honestly, we thought that the sound was going to be much more different than it ended up being. It is different, but it is not as dramatic as I thought it was going to be. And that's one of the reasons why this sort of experimentation is worthwhile, because every now and then you stumble on something that's really crazy. Like if you were here for the sandbag in the bass drum episode, we talked about that for weeks because it didn't make any sense why it was doing what it was doing, and we left it in there for months. I probably won't leave this on the Supra for months, but I am fascinated that it did do something, and I enjoyed the sound of the snare and of the cross stick, and I enjoyed the difference too. It wasn't better or worse, it was just kind of different. Now, as with all of these things, your results will vary based on your drum, your heads, your hoops, your tuning style, your playing style, the sticks you're using. It's bottomless. So I don't want people to write this off as a thing that's like not worthwhile, just like a lot of the other sort of experiments that we've done. It's worth trying it out yourself. And the nice thing about this is the next time you change your snare head that you were going to change anyway, you can do this. It's no extra money. It's just a little bit of extra time. And as far as we can tell, there's not a whole lot of risk involved. You can tune it up and see what it does. And if you like it, great. And if not, that's fine too. Again, you might have to get longer lug screws if, depending on the construction of your drum and what's built on it. And obviously you could do this with any hoop. I think you could do it with a die cast hoop. You could do it with whatever you have. We just did this because it was sort of specifically what was mentioned in the comment that we saw. So definitely worth seeing what it does. I'm probably going to try it out on some other drums too. It could be, that the Supra is a sort of like specific sound and it holds on to it really well. It's really hard to say. All right, thanks for watching our bizarro little experiment today. We really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell down there so that you'll get notifications whenever we put up a new video every Tuesday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again to ProMark by D'Addario for keeping us in the sticks and being our presenting sponsor. And let us know if this is a thing you've ever heard of or you've ever done, if it worked, if it didn't work. Or alternatively, if you have any hacks for getting a great cross stick sound that doesn't include buying something to screw onto the side of your drum, because we're looking for hacks.